Welcome back, guys. This is Eric here, just noodling around a little bit. Today we are going to be taking a look at a very, very special amplifier. This is a Fender Concert, okay, and these were made, this was sort of Fender's like early attempt at producing an amplifier that would basically become the Super Reverb. The Concert kind of goes back from the, the brownface era is what we call it. And in the brownface era, you had quite a few interesting amplifier technology advancements that were being made and some really cool things. And they were sort of moving forward a bit. And the blackface era, silverface era, brownface era, tweed era, all of those eras in Fender's amplifiers in terms of their history, they all have a very kind of unique sound and unique characteristics all of their own, okay? The Concert never really truly caught on quite like the Super Reverb did. The Super Reverb is sort of the amp that kind of became one of Fender's flagship amplifiers, you know, the 4 10-inch speakers. So the best way to think of a concert amplifier is a Super Reverb without reverb, okay? It's basically a dry Super Reverb, and it's obviously called the Concert and not the Super Reverb. However, that's not where the buck stops with the Concert. It's a little bit more than just a Super Reverb without reverb. The tremolo effect that this amplifier has is beautiful and truly, truly special. It utilizes a very early style of trem for Fender, whereby the later sounding trem is a little bit more of your Doppler style, a little bit more kind of sound. This trem on this amp actually does impart a little bit of pitch shifting characteristic and almost imparts, the only way I can really explain it is almost like a univibe-like sound on your signal that gives you this sort of almost envelope filter sort of compression and sound on your playing, okay? Now, I'm going to admit the trim in the intro was from the Strymon Flint. We're going to be doing a video on that particular pedal later, and we're going to compare some of the trims to some of the classic amps, but I'm going to let you hear the trim on this amp. Let me go over here and just dial it up. So right now we've actually got the trim dialed down all the way. So on the Concert amplifier, where your controls really vary, we are jumping the inputs. So in channel 1, you can see clearly that we are jumping input 1 over to input 2 of the main channel, the trim channel, and then we're running our guitar into input 1, and that makes these two sections interactive. We've got them dialed relatively low, but let's turn the trim up. Very pretty. Let's all right, let's play around with that a little bit. So it almost gives you this sort of odd, almost univibe-like tremolo more than it is the Doppler style that you see later in the 60s and 70s era Fender amps. Now this is a 61 Concert. It might be a 62. I'd have to check the date on it. But it's a 61-62 Concert. The speakers in this one are not original, but the cabinet and everything I can tell is original. The tubes obviously have been changed on it, but it's just a, you know, a unique sound. Okay, so there's your just naked amp. We're not running any pedals or reverb or anything. Very cool. All right, we'll add a little bit of reverb at the Strymon Flint. I like just a splash of reverb. Now, the reverb profile that we're using on this is a 60s profile, and I'll tell you what, I'll dial out just a splash of that mix knob so it's not quite so splashy. That's perfect. Just a splash. and then we're using the amplifier's trim, okay? So let's play around with that a little bit, and we'll add some fuzzes and drives and everything on top. How about a fuzz? Titan 2 fuzz machine, baby. Spaceman Effects. That really allows you to hear the profile of that trim. Vertex Ultraphonics. You get the idea, okay? We'll boost it, Vertex Boost. Let's add a splash of delay to that. Let's try that. All right, so you can really get some pretty sounds. The flubs are free. Just playing around a little bit there. Gorgeous amplifier, and of course, you know, the trim sounds on this amp are just wonderful, and they're very distinctive. You get the idea there, you know? It's just got this beautiful airy trim to it. So I'm just tinkering around, guys. I hope I'm not making too much racket, but that kind of gives you an idea of how the amp plays with pedals. And I've always wanted a brownface amplifier, and this amp actually came from the collection of Frank Verrilli. He's a very well-respected and well-known luthier here in Georgia. He makes custom guitars, and he makes a lot of really cool T and S style, you know, I guess tribute guitars, you would call them, but he's an artist too, and he's got some really cool guitars that he builds. So we're probably going to wind up having Frank come down and do a couple of videos with us and show off a couple of his guitars, if that's something you guys are interested in. But this came out of Frank's personal collection. And very interesting amp. A couple of other notes on the concert that people may not know about is a lot of the early Fender brownface, and not really the tweed amp so much, but mainly a brownface feature, is the addition of the presence control. Okay, and the presence control is kind of its odd little animal. You could almost consider it almost like a filter control on like a dumble amp in a way. It's sort of, it's not treble, but it's presence. All right, it's just sort of a different animal. When you look at the early Fender Bassman, early brownface amplifiers, you know, these amplifiers utilize, you know, obviously a tremolo circuit. You have bass, treble, volume. There's no mid control, okay? You basically just have a simple volume, treble, and bass on the first channel. First channel is dry channel only. And these channels can be jumped without any issues worrying about phase problems because of the way these amps are set up. But the brown sound is a beautiful sound. Now, we're not going to crank this particular one in this video. We've got it running on a relatively sedate 4, which is kind of where I like to run my super reverbs on 4 or 5 maybe. And just on the verge, I'm sorry, the urge, yeah, you get the urge to crank it, but definitely on the verge of getting into some compression. And you can push these amps pretty hard. They are very, very loud amplifiers. I want to say they're like 40 watts. I want to say the wattage is right on par with the super reverb, either 40 or 45 watts if my memory serves me correctly. And again, 4 10-inch speakers. The cabinet size is relatively identical to the super reverb. It's basically a super reverb without reverb and with a much nicer tremolo circuit. So guys, this has been a 1961-62 Fender Concert Amplifier, brownface, showing some brown love today here on the channel. These amps are wonderful. They sound great. If you can find them, pick them up. They're definitely worth having. They really nail that kind of bluesy thing in strides, especially when you get into just that beautiful, you know. I mean, I just get that beautiful, just kind of punchy, articulate. I mean, I'm running a, this is a 74 Gibson Gold Top Deluxe with mini humbucking pickups. That neck pickup is glorious through this particular amplifier. And these amps really have a characteristic that is different than a Silverface, okay? The Silverface gives you those kind of lofty, airy, punchy kind of sound, whereby the Concert is a little bit more mid-range focus, a little more growly, a little bit more... the brownface amps are kind of a marriage between tweed and blackface, like when Fender couldn't make up their mind like what they were doing yet. And then, of course, the blackface era is probably the most famous era associated with Fender amplifiers. And I would say probably the tweed era would be second most popular. You know, everybody loves the old tweeds. Everybody loves the blackface amps. But a lot of people forget about the brownface amplifiers that Fender put out. It was a very short amount of time when these amps were really prevalent. I would say 59 to around 63 or 64. is only like a 4 or 5 year period in Fender's history where the brownface amps were kind of the king of the hill. And they did obviously like some blonde rigs and things like that, like the blonde Tolex that you see, and they did obviously tweed during the tweed era, but they quickly went to blackface cosmetics pretty quick. And a lot of the brownface circuits did survive in some shape or form, obviously moving forward. Obviously, maybe just a tiny bit different, you know, some changes to the circuits, but for the most part, many of the brownface amps did sort of, you know, obviously survive into the blackface era, and in some cases, even the silverface era. You know, there was brownface Fender Deluxes, and that was back before the Deluxe had reverb. Okay, so they did make a bunch of blackface Deluxes. I think Fender made about 500 or 600 blackface Deluxes without reverb. Okay, so they were non-reverb Fender Deluxe reverbs. Now, when people say, oh, Deluxe reverb, they always associate the Deluxe with a reverb amp, but Fender also made the Deluxe as a non-reverb model. Some people, myself included, I think that the circuits between a non-reverb amp and a reverb amp have very, very, very different tonal characteristics, and they each have their own little charm. The reverb circuit does add a different sort of gain structure to the amp because of the way that the reverb works. And, you know, that's a whole nother mountain of questions and things to go over. But the non-reverb models in Fender's line probably are some of the least popular amps. I would say with today's players, most people want reverb on the newer amps, but what a glorious amplifier. We hope you enjoyed hearing it today. Hopefully I did her some justice. Guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. We appreciate all of you. Let me know, am I noodling too much in these videos? Are these videos too long? Let us know if you're happy with the length. If I need to shut up and just play and keep them short, let me know. We'll do whatever makes you guys happy. We post every Monday and Friday here on Guitarsenal. Make sure you tune in. This has been a 1961 Fender Concert. Yeah, buddy. Beautiful piece of Fender history and a nice functional piece that can still be loved and played and enjoyed. Such a special amplifier, and they just don't make them like this anymore, guys. That's just great. I'm going to play a little bit more and let you guys get back to your day. Thank you very much for tuning in with us. We hope you enjoyed it.